It starts out at signpost marker double C in a blue square. So right there along the roadside, that's what it'll have for a postmark. And then it comes up on Bass Lake here on the left. It takes a few minutes before you can see it there on the left side, but there's also a campground directly across, which is actually between Bass Lake and Beers Lake. And there's a trail that goes from that camp down to the boat loading boat ramp and the fishing pier and all that. But just a really long, quiet flat that you hike along for a while. But I'll warn you, it doesn't stay this easy. This one can be a butt burner. Well, the way that we ended up doing it. I will admit, I went a lot longer on this loop than I originally expected to. There's a little cutover trail on postmark M that somehow I missed and kept going south and looped all the way around to postmark K before I realized it. And that's how we ended up going around Cow Lake as well. But it worked out. I mean, it really only put 2.5 extra miles on the whole day. And we got caught in a little bit of rain at the end, so as you can see, if you make it around that far, thank you very much. But you'll see, we start to move along a little quicker once we get toward the end, because it really did pick up a little bit on the rain. I took a chance the whole day, really, because I was just sitting around most of the morning. I showed up to the park like an hour before I expected the rain to stop anyway. Well, it took longer, of course, because I just really wanted to go. It was Saturday. I had the day off. I didn't care. I wanted to go hiking. I watched the weather. It said it was going to stop around noon. It lied. It didn't stop till around 1. But really, it didn't even stop. All it is a big break between another storm coming right behind it. And that's what I ended up getting caught into. But it pretty much stayed like this for the most part. And it was cool. It was, the wind I thought was going to blow the storm right out, and stayed steady around 10, 12 miles an hour. So it was a little bit on the cool side, even though the temperatures were in the 60s, because it was kind of a mist. The rain never really went away, So between that and light showers and the wind, and the open meadows like this, you got a little wet now and then. But it made it really quiet. No crunchy leaves. Even a lot of the smaller twigs were quiet to snap if you happen to step on them. At one point when I was sitting there in the van waiting to get going, I actually thought about leaving and just starting over somewhere else, because it came down pretty good there for a while. And then I thought, man, it's just going to make the trails muddy, and why am I here? I just wasted half a day. but I stuck it out, and I was really glad I did, because this is a good 5-mile hike right here. And if you want to see this trail, where am I looking at here? I'm just kind of scanning around, I guess. Oh, okay, that direction right there that I just panned, it was straight over to the campground. I could hear, the kids over there running and playing, and that's what I was saying at that point. But if you really wanted to hike this loop and you wanted to see it before you hiked it, I highly recommend watching this, because it's challenging in places. It's not all like this. This part right here is a walk in the park, but the whole thing is not. You can almost see the lake there. I'm not sure what that whole waving thing was about, but probably talking about the trail itself. It's a meadow. You're not walking on a sidewalk, even right here. It's a meadow. So there's some unevenness to it. So if you're not even used to walking on, farmland, this could twist you up a little bit in places. You can see I'm in no hurry, even with knowing I'm in between rainstorms, really. I'm in no hurry at all. Usually never am. I'm looking through the woods for wildlife and any type of sign of them. What I'm talking about here is the breeze that's coming down through there with the mist. I actually took my hat off and let it cool me down a little bit. It's a nice little decline, really. It's a gradual downhill. I mean, you can kind of see it here, and you can really see it when I turned around and looked up there. But it's slow and gradual. Just going back down the ridgetop. That flat that we were walking on in the meadow. You're going to come down into a saddle here along the lake. It's good to see spring has sprung. It's a little early. The green is just kind of a light fade in the background there, but you can see it. You'll see it in other places where I get into the thicker stuff, but you can almost see the mist, and maybe you can. Maybe that's what's making the green look so faded kind of in the background, because the mist is kind of there. There you go. You can see what we just came down. Those trees up there are way higher. That's kind of what I said right there too. Yeah, it wasn't a walk in the park. It was some different terrain. What I'm talking about right here is drainage washouts, and try to stay on the dirt here. See how I'm walking up on the higher part on the packed dirt? Well, under those leaves is nothing but washout. That's why the leaves are there. All the water washed right into that. And it's nothing but rolling rock. The dirt is washed out and it's all rocks and loose gravel. And once those leaves are gone, you'll be able to see it better. But it's really uncomfortable to walk on and dangerous. So stay on the hard pack and you really won't have that much of a problem. You'll see a lot of trails where there's timber, square timber cut and laid across the trails at angles. Those prevent that from happening. It creates little stages for the water to run off sideways so it doesn't wash out the trail completely. You really see it on horse trails because that's highly dangerous for horses. People have a little bit more of a conscious mind to stay out of it, you would think. I always seem to slow down when I come up on lower land and water because you never really know what's getting a drink along the shoreline, or you might see a bunch of puddle ducks diving or something. You just go slow. Why spook them? I mean, you will eventually, but go slow enough. You might watch them for a while. And it's always good to remember, slow down when you're in the lowlands, because it's a good break for when you got to climb back up. It's a nice shot right there. That'll look totally different in 2 more weeks. It's a nice spot for a trail. The water's still a little bit high from winter thaw yet, but you can tell that even with the high brown grass there to the left, that it stays wet most of the time. There's actually a drainage pipe right here that comes out the other side to let the extra pressure seep through the little dam they made for the trail. But you can see it's pretty level. Right down there, there's a pipe that lets it creak out. But it's not much of a pipe. It was only 8-inch pipe. So I'm sure it's plugged. It's a nice view though. Looks like you can just walk right out there. You can see how high that ridge was we just walked up though there to the left. Starting to climb up another one right now. This is the Saturday before Mother's Day. These trails are pretty clean for this early in the year, actually. I'm really impressed that, you know, winter tree down and limbs down, and everything I walked today was pretty much clean. It's kind of a neat rock. This little ridge top goes along the lake here for a while. You'll see it down out to the left there for a little bit. Then we'll drop down into a saddle alongside it. Really clean. Easy to see through. It makes it hard to see wildlife because they see you, but if you're slow and quiet, a lot of times you'll see them. They're used to people. It's a state park. They know better. But they also know they're safe. This particular park is located in an area where there would be bear. And it is early spring, but driving around in here earlier, I was planning to park in some random camp space, that was close to a trail and just start walking. But then I realized most of the campers were full and there weren't that many left, and I didn't want to take one up in case someone rented it and showed up and I was there. So I decided to park elsewhere and do my own thing. But with the amount of people that are in there, that's probably why we're not seeing much wildlife, or won't. Throughout the day, I actually bumped into horses. Another cool rock. Starting to lead into a little bit of a gradual decline here. Nice look around before we drop down over the ridge. It's nice to get these views this early in the year. You don't see this in the summertime. Everything's green and lush. Still looks cool. It's nice to hike, but you don't feel the breeze as much. Can't get through the trees, Just nice looking down through there. can see some green over there on that far ridge. We're about to go up again. You almost wonder if they ride around with four-wheelers with leaf blowers on them or something, because these trails are exceptionally clean for this early in the year. There's not enough people that's been on them to do this. You know, and wind, I don't think naturally would do that. If anything, it would cover it more. And surprisingly, with that fresh, wet, and mostly muddy dirt exposed, there are no tracks of any animal or human for that matter. I'm making the only tracks right now. It's a little bit of a longer draw when we get down in here. There's a bit of a slough off to the right as well. It's so low. Just to prove my point, I guess. Oh, this was confusing to me right here. Yeah, okay, when I got to this point, there's a trail there that veers off to the right. It goes straight up that ridge. But my blue markers were going this way. And you can see hiking club, and that's the trail I'm on. And that's what I'm saying right here. But I'm assuming what's going on is that's a shortcut to where, because it's not on that map that you just saw. It's not marked at all anywhere. So we're staying on the hiking club trail because that's what we want to be on. And I'm standing there long enough to say that it's probably another trail that goes up to the exact same spot that, people over the years have just realized that they can just get up there quicker to go that way. You see that a lot in some parks, especially switchbacks. People won't walk switchbacks on the way down. They'll just go straight across on switchbacks. And eventually that wears out a trail. And people pick up on it and start hiking them up too. So they get wore out really bad, like that one right back there. And that's what I assumed that was, but I never bumped into it again. So I really don't know what it is. It's not marked on any map, even my map on my phone that I got from my hunting map, which is a really good one. It's not marked on that either. But this is kind of a interesting ridge that we're about to come up, because it fools me in the sense that I thought it was going to go back up to that trail, because it does a little switchback kind of thing. But, oh, excuse my hand there. Adjusting the camera a little bit because I'm going uphill. I like to make sure you get straight view here. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm taking a drink out of my new water bladder pack. I picked up a new one. My old one, the bladder was okay. There was nothing wrong with it. Well, there was nothing wrong with the pack either. It was just big. And I've had it for a long time. I had it when I did a lot of mountain biking, so I could carry 2 bladders. Because that's really all I did when I mountain biked was rode and snacked and drank water. So that's really all I needed. But now that I hike and I carry a few extra things, first aid kits and stuff, all I really needed was one bladder and a smaller pack. So I just got a newer one and packed away the other one. I actually have it on now, and it's a little overly loaded. Let's put it that way. I got carried away when I put the water in. I filled it up over halfway just to make sure it would hold water with pressure. And I didn't want to waste the water, so I was like, well, so I loaded it. For what I'm hiking right now, half of that amount would have been plenty. Yeah, that's a really nice view. I spin around now and then just to give a different view. That's quite a drop off there to the left. As I'm just noticed myself, I guess. But people have been walking this trail for so long, it's a shelf. But the shelf is getting narrower and narrower. Pretty soon they'll have to make it, deeper in. Look how high that ridge is. That other trail went straight up to that. And we're pretty high up right now. If you remember looking down into that lake down there. So it's a pretty high ridge right here. Okay, what's going on now is there's a woodpecker flying around the trees. There he goes. Makes those trees look really tall looking up that ridge like that. Like I'm in some fantasy forest. I had to get my eyes refocused looking up in those trees like that and then looking down onto the ground. Gotta clean that tree up a little bit. That won't really take much though. What I'm talking about right here is the fact that you can get more ticks on you by stepping over that tree than you will by stepping off the trail and going around it. Because your clothing, you'll rub your crotch line like a saddle over that tree, and you could pick up to a handful of ticks that way by straddling a tree. Sitting on a tree is the worst thing you can do, and especially this wet, damp stuff like this. Don't do that. They are out right now. I've had two on me. I brought home one because I'm doing a voiceover, I can tell you this. I brought home one from this trail. I happened to be putting my hand down to do some writing, and it crawled across my hand like it came out of my sleeve. And one from another trail in Glendalough that I found on my ankle when I took my shoe off. So they're out already. So be careful where you're hiking. Stay on the trail. This is the reason why they clean these trails like they are, so you won't get ticks on you. This is what makes an exceptionally good park. Right here, what I'm talking about is the importance of proper footwear, where I had my hand up where you're hiking up a hill and at a camber. Well, this early in the year, it's really good to have ankle support, hiking shoes or hiking boots with ankle support, because most people have been, kind of lazy over the winter and sitting around with your feet crossed on the couch watching TV, so there's really not much strength there. So early hiking in the year, you want to get yourself some good ankle support. Maybe later on, as you do some more easy hikes, this is easy, but there's places where you really don't want to be wearing your Jordans or your Nikes. You could twist an ankle pretty good in some of this stuff. Even a good pair of work boots you're better off with than you are your comfortable sneakers that you wear loafing around or going to the gym. Just better support. And the soles are stiffer, and that's really what you need. Even though the ground right here is relatively soft with dirt and mud, you do come across, rocks, and almost to the point where it's a rock path. And soft-soled sneakers really get irritating to walk on that after a while. So a rigid sole is pretty important when you're hiking. And good traction coming up right here. You can see the off camber, the leaves, and going uphill. Don't go up here in your loafers. Right here, perfect. You would slip with soft-soled shoes. Get some grip. Get something you can really put your foot down and know you're secure. Now here comes our first switchback that made me think that we were going to head back up to that very first split off where it went straight up the ridge. But again, it never did. You can see the trail below right there. That's what I'm talking about. That trekking pole you see now and then that I have, that's really nothing special. You can get those for less than $20. You can get two for less than $30 at Walmart, and I highly recommend them. At least get one. You can get one for around, I don't know, $12, $15, something like that. It's not a baseball bat. You're not gonna swat somebody that's attacking you and protect yourself. Well, I mean, you kind of can, but it's perfect. I've been using mine for over a week, and once I got to fine tuning it and got it where I like it, I don't hike without it now. I highly recommend it. You feel so much more stable on that off camber and up hills, and just gives you that third leg you need to get that extra bounce sometimes too. Especially if you do any camera work, you just feel so much more stable. It's almost getting to where it looks like a deer trail now. Some places it's, you got to pay attention a little bit, but it's marked everywhere, so it's not like you lose your way. Although, oddly, like I said, when I got to sign marker M, for some reason I missed my left turn. Probably gabbing along. Didn't really bother me once I found out. It just like, oh, okay. That explained a couple of things. It explained why I hit a couple of water holes that weren't on the map. And I couldn't figure that out. But I did explain it after a while. It's nice when you get up on the ridge tops. You can really look around. For some reason, I'm really moving along. I don't know. Maybe the weather is putting a little fear in me or something, but usually I'm a poker. A 2-mile trail will take me, 2 hours. I just literally poke. But this does seem to be a little bit more gradual downhill, so maybe the momentum has taken me along. Talking about being as high as the ridge across the other side. The disadvantage of watching the videos and being there is you don't feel the breeze or any of that being there, all the sounds from a long distance away that I hear that the microphone doesn't pick up, and just being there is the best. Clearings like that I really like. When I get in explore mode, I do a lot more exploring in the fall when it's a little more, I want to say, cleaner in the forest. You don't have as many insect world, let's put it that way. Once you get your first or second cold snap and most of that stuff dies off, then I'll start wandering off trails and exploring more. And that I really like to do. I'm not sure what that little breakdance move was. I was talking about something, I'm sure. I am going downhill, I can tell, because I'm going along a pretty good clip, and I can tell by the way the terrain is slowly turning left there. It's quite a drop. Pretty nice day to be out there doing this, though. Really quiet in the woods. Gorgeous country. Now that I know this trail, I will actually keep it marked, and we will do this one. Maybe we'll do it in a nice day in the summer. We'll do it in the summer, but I got to do it in a nice day. You know, if it's low 70s, we'll be all over this trail. Here comes another place for ticks. See, something like this, instead of climbing through all this and brushing your clothes all over it, walk around it just like I'm doing right here. You're less likely to get ticks on you by stepping over something you can totally clear and get around. Even all that deadfall right there, step really wide over it and get right back up on that trail. But ducking underneath all that right there, that's what I'm talking about right now. You rub your clothes on that, and that's how deer get deer ticks. They go through the brush and they come off the sticks and land on the deer. That's how they get on you. These trails are clean like this for a reason, so you stay clean. I like how that drops in there like that. Coming up on 45 minutes into this video, I applaud anyone who has made it this far. I hope you're here because you want to see what this trail is and maybe listening to my little bit of rambling here. But I don't edit out the full trail. Once I'm on the trail, it's a full video. I do it for a reason, so when people want to see the trail, they can see the whole thing if they want. Or they can fast forward it, or they can do whatever, but they can see the whole trail. That's my whole point. Really, the only time I edit anything is if I walk along a roadside or on a road or in an area where there's a lot of personal things that I don't want to put on. Not just my personal things, but private things, private property things that I don't want to put on video or don't think I should or whatever. That's the only time I'll do that, because sometimes it's just quicker for me to leave the camera on. I saw wild turkey print there. But sometimes it's quicker for me just to leave the camera on because I'm actually physically moving quickly or running to get to something, you know, some kind of live action or whatever. So I'll edit that little scurrying stuff out, you know, because why would anybody want to see the road or anything like that, you know? But otherwise, it's full raw footage all the way. We're heading back up another little peak here. So again, I appreciate anybody that follows along to watch the whole trail. I'm a sucker for draws and saddles, and yeah, I just love it. Bass Lake is down there. It's just starting to thicken up now where the bottom is getting harder to see through. We're actually climbing a ridge now that's beyond the south side of, or south end of the lake. I would have to turn and look over my left shoulder to see the lake, basically, is what I'm saying. But the lower land slough and all that is just off to the left there, down the bottom of this ridge I'm on. If you took a picture of the blue line loop at the beginning of this video, and we took a picture of your phone, you could actually follow along and see where I'm going on that map, because that blue line is an actual trek line. I had my phone on, I had a hunting app I had on, excuse me, and I had the trek on, so it recorded my actual steps. So what you're seeing right now, you could actually follow along by reading the topographical map and seeing me going down each ridge and up each ridge, and you'll know right where I'm at. I'm adjusting the camera down a little bit because we're going down, down. This is the type, This is the type of terrain where people get careless. When you're going downhill and you lose a little bit of stability with forward momentum. So you really got to pay attention to the ground that's under your feet. This is particularly smooth, but a lot of times there's washouts and downhills. And that's where people get tripped up and twist ankles because they're careless. Like I said, the forward momentum is just taking them a little out of control, and they'll step in that little washout and stumble on the loose gravel, and next thing you know, they're on their face. Stay on the packed, hard dirt all the time. It's more stable. Still going downhill, now we're just veering to the right a little bit. Really nice woods to walk in. The weather was super nice. Even with the threat of rain, the temperature was perfect, the breeze was perfect. Just one of those days you had to be there. It's still basically been just a walk in the park. You know, a few steep up and down ridge peaks that you had to pay attention to, and a few washouts, you know, but like I said, if you're staying on the packed ground, there's always packed ground next to a washout. The people alone will instinctively make another trail around the danger. So pretty much follow the crowd. And I just always like to stop and look around. You know, a lot of times I'll walk another trail in reverse. You know, or I should say, I'll walk the same trail in reverse because it's a whole different view. Even though you've walked that trail and you think you know it, you walk in reverse and it becomes a whole different trail. And I'll do that a lot, especially short ones. You know, take an hour or less, and they're a loop. I might even turn right around and walk it the same day, the same time. Okay, here's where I came up on um, the Little Cow Lake campsite trail. So I had to figure out how to get back up on where I wanted to go here. And I found it right there. See the hiking trail sign. But that was actually a little camper setting up for horses. That's why the horses, no horse sign is there, because now I'm back on the hike club trail and they're not allowed. They were allowed to go left there. So that was basically just a horse camp. And I bumped into them people at one point, maybe just before that, and I didn't see it when I was doing the edit here. But yeah. I was just thinking to myself right then, man, it is nice area to be out horseback riding for sure. Hear me fumbling my notes around while I'm doing my voiceover. At some points I actually follow along on the map just because it makes me remember where the points of interest were that I crossed up or might have seen it's coming up or something. So I pay attention to where I am going along the road here. Some of this lower land I have bumped into, especially dragonflies, but even mosquitoes are out already. You get down into the swampier, shallower water where the sun heats it up more. It gets it more warm. But I've only had to swat at a couple while I was hiking. But the dragonflies, yeah, they were buzzing pretty good. The thing with this hiking club trail is it's marked with a little square light blue, like a sky blue, light blue sign that says hiking club. And a lot of the other signs are marked with a similar blue. So you have to be careful. See, like that right there, that blue? That's not a marker for the hiking club. So you can get easily confused. That's a different club or a different marker for just a hiking trail itself. Some of these trails run together just to make it easier for, getting to one trail to the next. They'll run together, the hiking trails and the like mountain bike trails or the scenic loop that you drive on. That's a dirt road, so that's part of a hiking trail. So the colors are not necessarily for the trail that you're hiking. So right there's blue. That's a light blue, but it's also a shade different from the hiking club blue. So, you really got to pay attention if you want to stay on a trail. It's not really that big a deal because most of all these trails are on the map. So once you find a trailhead marker, the ones that have the letters, you just find that letter and you'll know where you're at. And then you can go from there. But if you're specifically want to do a trail, you just pay attention. Also in this park, there's an east and a west. Like the west side of the park, all the letter markers are red. And the east side of the park, all the letter markers are blue. So a lot of the west side is long trails. And they're out in the open meadows and, the flatlands. So they're really long wide open trails. I'm always talking about deer and deer hunting when I'm out hiking. It's just, you can see right there I was in camouflage. It's just who I am. I'm an outdoors guy. You know, I like hiking a lot. I'm starting to get into it more and more, especially this year. I'm buying a little bit more equipment for it and being more prepared and paying attention and learning some things. But no matter what, I get in the woods and right away, I'm a hunter. I think it's just one of those human nature things. If you're a fisherman, you drive by a lake and you're wondering where all the peaks and valleys are out there in the deep spots, and you're watching the edges and seeing if it's a flat or if it's a drop. And it's just what we do. It's what we're into. If you're a off-road motorcyclist, you're looking at terrain off in the distance, where a bunch of ridges and peaks come together, and there's going to be a lot of rocks and rough terrain to ride. It's just whatever you're into, that's what you use your land for. Even farmers driving along and figuring out if it's tillable land from afar. They don't have to be out there and standing in it to know what's what. You learn that as you go through life. Just like being a hunter, being in the woods, you learn. Sure, people teach you things along the way. I've taught people things along the way, but they get out in the field and they apply those. They're still learning their technique on someone else's philosophy or techniques or whatever. They're going to learn their own way. Nice view through the trees of the lake. We're looking at the very south end of Cow Lake right now. Of course, at this point where I'm standing, I don't know that. I think I'm going around the bottom of Bass Lake yet, or I'm confused going, I didn't think Bass Lake was this big because I didn't take that left turn that I was supposed to take a while back. But it was worth it because I wouldn't have seen all this right here. I never know what I'm talking about when I stop and my arms are flailing along. Who knows? I could be just letting the breeze blow under my hat for a minute, which I could have very well been doing right then. There's just enough moisture and mist in the air to make it muggy if you are moving along. I'm not sure what that little karate move is all about. But now and then you're going to see water drops and stuff, because it does get a little misty here and there. And of course, I have a chest mount, so I don't see that. And I really don't feel it either because I have the brim of my hat. So it's really not even getting in my face unless I take my hat off. It's such a fine, fine mist that you barely feel it even on your hands. I can always tell when I'm looking for deer because I slow down a little bit, and there's a little bit more twist in the camera from my head going back and forth, left and right. I get down in those lowlands and my bow hunter instincts kick in. Land like this is pretty tough to actually hunt because you'd actually have to come in and camp close by to wherever you wanted to hunt, because I'm an hour and 10 minutes on this trail already. So to hike in the dark an hour to get there to hunt this prime morning area, it would be really hard to do. So you'd have to be in here the day before, close by, where you could hike to this area within 10 minutes. And hopefully play the wind right while you're camping so you don't disturb the area and, the whole rule. So it'd be a pretty tough area to hunt, but depends on what you hunt with. You come out here during rifle, you could just come out here early in the morning enough to walk around at daybreak, be in here a half hour, start walking in. Because usually rifle, sometimes there's snow on the ground, so you get a little bit of better moonlight. But bow hunting, it's, September you can start and the leaves are still green and big and full. It's hard to get anywhere in the dark. Okay, now right here, see that little square? Maybe, anyway. But off to the right there's a trail. That trail goes to Maplewood Church. There's a trail that hikes down to that. Luckily, we took this left. Or I'd be even further off track. Actually, this right here just walks down. This is just a canoe path. But getting back to that, such prime habitat for bear, right along the shoreline like that. That's a great crappie hole. I'm going to remember that, actually, because I have a fishing kit that I can put on my back, and a nice ultralight. Just wing it right out there, right out in front of that tree. About 2.5 foot of line off a lightweight bobber with a minnow. Boom. Yep. I know right where that is on the map. I can put that on my phone map so I can find that on locator. I'll be fishing there. But anyway, yeah, right there, if I took a right down that other trail, that goes to the Maplewood Church. So right now we are at the very south end of Cow Lake, about to turn around it in a long loop. This lake is actually bigger than I thought it was. And that may have been what confused me, because it was, if you look on the map compared to Beers Lake, which is north of it, it looks like a puddle. But to stand next to it, of course, looking across 150, 200 yards is totally different. Yeah, so this wanders now southeast for quite a while. In fact, we come up on another little puddle lake to the right before we even start to turn back around and go back north again. So we got quite a ways to go yet. So here again, an hour and 15 minutes, and we're still heading south. And yeah, I want to thank anybody that is still here. It's been a full day, and I like to make sure I show everything I do on the trail. That's the last lake, or last look of Cow Lake. Unless I turn around again in the next 10 minutes, you're never going to see it again. Well, that might not be true, because we're kind of up on a ridge here. And all I got to really do is scan left, and you'll see it. Still bright skies back there. So we're still in between the storms, which is a good thing, because coming up on this open, if it was any kind of rain, the camera would have been off. How's that for a turkey hunting field? I'm going to guess, if I had to guess, that the closest house that someone would live in to where we are right now would probably be at least 10 miles, if not more. Because this field right here is probably, oh man, 2 miles in the park that is surrounded by just private land that's all woods that there's no houses on for a while. So what I'm talking about right here is how that corner is just lower. They'd come out and they'd walk down the backside because it just drops right down off and you couldn't even see them. If it was a brighter day, it would show what I'm talking about much better. But the gloominess is showing too many shadows back there. I think I actually look down there again once I get up in here. And you can, yeah, right here. You can see how all that drops down way back in that left corner back in there. And that's where you want to be. That's where animals are going to come out in that bottom left corner. Even if they come out back there, they're still going to head to that bottom left corner. It's the safest place. See what I mean? I'm not even in the woods. All I got to do is look at woods, and I'm talking about deer hunting. Now we're going to drop down off this flat. That meadow was up on a flat. So we're going to drop down off of that and another breeze coming down through there. So I stood there for a moment feeling it. This one drops pretty good. I was really surprised. I mean, you can see already that the bottom is way down there. I'm even taking my steps slow right now because I'm like, holy cow. It was just hard for me to even, yeah. I shot the camera down so hiking down it, you would understand it better. This is where a trekking pole comes in handy. You can see the whole right side of this is, well, maybe not the whole right side, but it's already starting to get washed out on the right side here. But yeah, I'm taking it. I got good traction, and even I'm taking it one easy step. It's steeper than it looks on this camera, but you're getting a pretty good shot of it though. Look at those trees off to the side. Yeah, they're pretty tight to the side of the hill. Yeah, now my steps are getting a little wider. It's starting to flatten out a little bit. I'm telling you right now, I'm glad I went down that and not had to go up it. I'll fix my camera a little bit now because sometimes I forget, and you'd be surprised. You get home and, here, let's look how high that was. Oh yeah, that's up there. Look how tall those trees are. Jeez. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, don't forget to adjust your camera. You'll end up recording the ground. I've done it before. So this little extra loop that we're doing right now is an extra 3 miles on what my original plan was. And I still don't even know it yet at this point that I'm doing it. I'm just so la-di-da walking along. I'll know it in another 3/4 of a mile or so. Now right here off to the right is where that slough is. So we're down into another bottom here. Prime little area for bear right here, right there. They'll just come down and flip all these logs over and get salamanders and grubs and worms and frogs, and whatever else is stuck up in there. Any vegetation that's growing, mushrooms, up and down both sides of them little ridges on both sides of the slough right here. And over on that far side that I was just pointing at is especially good because that's the South Ridge. Morning sun. It's just hard not to stop and look around. It's a perfect day for it. I've said it over and over and over all day long. God, couldn't ask for a better day. Cool breeze. It got windy once we got up closer to Beers Lake. Once the wind got whipping across that, then we were really moving along pretty good because the wind was really going then. But you won't hear it because I'm doing the voiceover. And that's the main reason right there, because that whole section was just polluted with wind noise. And even me, knowing what I was saying, I couldn't make it out. So I just scratched the whole thing, the beginning and all, because it's easier for me to sit here and do it clean. Surprisingly, this was one of the major, but only serious mud holes that I came across. And I could have easily just walked through it, but because it was really only about 3 inches deep at the wettest spot. So it wasn't like it was dangerous. Small little flats. I like these when they look over the swamps and the lowlands. You take 3 or 4 steps and stop and look around, and take another step or two and stop and look around with binoculars when you're bow hunting. And man, you'd be surprised the stuff you see in these lowlands like this. Get up on a flat. It's especially if you go from tree to tree to tree, and just be a part of the tree when you're standing there. The only thing you're moving is your eyeball. People think just because they don't see something instantly that they're not going to see something at all in that area, and then you just move on really quick. And most of the time when they move on really quick is the reason why they don't see something. Patience. Stay longer. Look longer. That little water hole doesn't even have a name on the map. So my guess is it probably almost dries up in the summertime. There's quite a few, I call them beaver lakes, beaver ponds. There's quite a few in the park, as well as, there's a lot of water holes in general. Just lakes that you can use as recreation. South Leda Lake is the big lake. That's where the swimming beach is, and that's where most of the people hang out in the summertime. The teenagers, the beach, and all that. But this is prime area for bear right here. I know I stop and look at this and say exactly what I'm saying right now. All those stumps that are right there, they're so easy for a bear to flip over. Even a small cub can move those. And the amount of amphibious life that lives near and around them, the little peeper frogs and ones they hear at night, that's the kind of places they live in. My pace has picked up a little bit. I'm almost wondering if I now realize that I'm not where I'm supposed to be, or where I thought I was going to be. It's not about where I was supposed to be, because I never really care when I'm out hiking. I just go, Even to have a set plan, it doesn't really matter. That's the beginning of a washout right here. You can see some rocks starting to poke up through, and the water really doing the damage. It won't be long. That'll be harder and harder to climb. Right there to the right, where all those leaves are trapped. They're trapped there because the water's hung them up on the rocks that are exposed. I'm walking on the hard pack. Well, now they're hung up because they're up on top. The water hasn't really flowed that well up there. Yeah, it was a little bit of a hike up that. It's no wonder the water washed it out, right? Sometimes I think I'm helping by moving the camera, but it might have been even better off where it was. But I put it back there anyway. No clue. Must have been talking about something, how big it was. That's a caution sign to warn you about that drop that we just came up. Cabin up there. But I had no idea was up there or why. But this section that we're hiking right now is really close to the, it's that one-way, part of the one-way road, Park Drive, and the mountain bike loop. It's really close to that. It's kind of like off to the right of where we're hiking right now. Probably 80 to 100 yards down that ridge. Coming up on another little pond that's not marked at all on the map. We're just walking along a shelf on a ridge. The ridges to the left here isn't much higher than where we're at. We're pretty much to the top of it. We're just walking around the whole southeast side of it and then heading more north. But down off to the right, there's a little pond down there. It's actually hard to see through the trees. You should start to see it by now. But it's down there. Oh yeah, you can kind of see it. But that's steep. That's what I'm showing right there, how steep that is. And that really doesn't even look that steep on topo, because I remember looking at it, following along. We're coming up actually on the K sign. That's when I realized that I took the long way around. And then it all started to come to me why I was seeing so many extra little ponds and sloughs that I didn't expect to see. But you never, like I said, you never really know in this park because there's just so many little beaver ponds here and there, everywhere. Even just driving around, you see them. Almost see how steep that is now at that angle. It's almost corner to corner. The terrain in the view. Upper left corner to the lower right corner. That's pretty steep. That was literally just a shelf that went around the whole ridge top that you can hike on. It was so easy to do right there. Just continues around the whole thing. Now you can really see that pond that it looks over. There you go. When that thickens up with leaves, you probably won't even be able to see the lake. This will slowly go down to the right, and that's when I learned that I took the extra steps. I could hike on trails like this all day long. I think I remember saying that a few times too. And right behind it, I would say, man, it's such a nice day for hiking. The weather's perfect. So it might be a good thing that the audio is a voiceover, even though I've probably said it a half a dozen times just doing this. But yeah, it was as nice as it looks. And truthfully, if the sun came out after all that rain and the mist that it's doing now, the sun just all of a sudden came out, it would have been really humid. So this was perfect, literally perfect for hiking. And with views like you just saw with the lake down there, being high up on the ridge on a saddle, you could just sit there, pull out a little fold-up chair and just sit there and probably watch eagles soar over that lake because it's so secluded. 10, 15, maybe 20 miles from the closest house. And probably that far or further from the closest town. I was a little surprised, being it rained for the whole night and right up until afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was still kind of raining, that I'm surprised that wildlife isn't up and moving around other than, birds and stuff. But usually deer like to get up and stretch their legs, and squirrels too. They like to get out of the nest because they just get wet. I'm not sure what I'm looking at there, but maybe just the lake had a weird view. Just perfectly wide open. I think I see a white square sign down there. This is where the K sign shows up. A little swampy there at the left. Just overflow. Has nowhere to go. That's not normally there. You can see the trail. That's normally dry. That's just overflow. And there's the big K. This is where I go, holy crap, that's where I'm at? Excuse me. And then I realized, oh my God, we gotta go way up here yet. So, wow. Yeah. You got ways to go, son. You best slap them happy feet across that mud and get going. I thought I was right here. Here I was now. I got to do all this. Yeah. Stop whining. Get going. I know what I'm saying right now. And I'm looking at that sign, hoping that dot will move or something, because I really didn't want to be that far away at this point because I was tired and hungry. The last thing I ate was a banana. No, I'm talking myself right out of going that way. So, yeah, that's not going to happen. That's actually the mountain bike, the green line, the mountain bike loop. You don't want to be on that. That would be like walking on a dirt road. And it's hard. That would be better for your Nikes. I got to go through that right there. And nothing to it but to do it, buddy. Move on. Yep, that's the K sign. You now got to find the L sign. Move on. Squish, squish. It's really not as deep as it looks either. It's deep enough. I'm hanging on to this so I don't slosh it in the mud. That's why my hand's there. But I'm going to take a jump step across there, so I'm hanging on to stuff. There we go. That's why. So we can move on and head up to the L sign now. Because now I realize that I went to a spot that I shouldn't have. This is something you don't want to scrape across either. I made sure I went really low on that. But you can see my pace is picking up a little because now I realize what's going on. And that banana I ate with V8 Energy black cherry juice, that's about to kick in. I think I even had a couple of white chocolate Reese's Pieces. I know I did, actually. The mini ones. yeah, my pace is just about doubled here. I'm just moving because I really want to get back to the van and get something to eat at this point. And yeah, I may not be calling myself a lot of names out loud, but in my mind I'm thinking, dude, do you realize that you put another 3 miles on what you intended to do? I mean, good for you, but yeah, there's Angus burgers in the van waiting to be cooked. But the good thing about this trail is an actual hiking trail, so it's going to be pretty much like this all the way. Pretty smooth, even through the meadows. It's going to be four-wheeler tracks probably, but it won't be a lot of dangerous stuff because it's a well-used hiking trail. It's a mile before we get to the L sign. I don't know what's going on there. Oh yeah, this is where all the bird feathers. There was a bunch of gray bird feathers. Like something got into a ruckus right there or something, but oh yeah, I remember this. This comes up on some mud here too. I gotta get up on the grass. All this right here is muddy. I had to get up on the grass and get off it because it was 3/4 to an inch just loose wet mud trying to flow down. Even turkeys. I was just really surprised not to see turkeys in these open fields with this kind of weather. I mean, it's quiet back there. Just really surprised. I do talk while I'm walking, doing the videos, but it's not loud. It's not even much louder than what I'm doing right now. It's basically if I was having a conversation with someone sitting at a dinner table. It's not much louder than that. So anything, up to maybe 40 yards might hear me, and it might travel a little bit in the open areas. But, I mean, you walk up on people in the woods and they're coming to you and they're talking, you really don't hear them until they're relatively close. Maybe even 10 yards or closer before you hear them. Now, granted, they're going to tone it down a little bit when they get closer to people, just out of respect, but still, we're getting into some muckier stuff here. And this is prime bear area here. Back where they got easy access to water and stumps, deadfall. That's another little waterway that doesn't show up on the map at all. Not a good park to train in how to read topo map because a lot of these little sloughs and water ponds and I don't know, you can't use them as a landmark to guide your way. So now I may be standing here saying something like that. That's why I'm standing here for so long. But I know there's no animals over there. I actually think I'm taking a drink out of my cooler bag again. It's just easier to do while you're standing still. Quick look around, move on. Here I was talking about thinking I was over on that peak over there, and I was not. Up here, I was thinking that we were coming around the bottom side of Bass Lake again, and I'm talking about we were over there at one point. I remember down that low point we were looking up here saying it's a saddle and all. We weren't. We were not there. So it's a good thing that you cannot hear what I'm saying, because I'd be lying. So carry on, son. You are not where you think you are. I even look on the map and almost convince myself that's where I think I am. And it's all because this water does not show up on the map. That's what's confusing me right now. I know what trail I'm on because I saw the K. I'm standing there looking upon a slough, and I'm looking at the map and it's not showing up. So I finally get the idea and move on that water does not show up on the map, because it's probably not there most of the time. You can really see it getting misty now. Just about the time I hit the L sign is when it starts to mist up pretty good. Here I am sneaking around the water holes again. It's a pretty good sized pond to be not on the map. I mean, there's nothing showing that. Looking at Topo, you can tell there's kind of a low land structure, but it doesn't show it as water. That's a nice view for something that's not supposed to be there. Easy walking. You just set your own pace, really. You could jog this if you were an experienced jogger on some of the washouts and knew how to avoid them and stay on the hard pack. You could jog this. In high school, there was a cross-country team that's what they did. We had a good cross-country course at our high school. This would make a good course for that. Those guys train hard. I mean, they were always hiking mountains just to keep their ankles and calves and knees in prime shape. So when they ran cross country, you know, their lower body was in really good shape for it, their legs. You take a pretty good jarring when you run cross country. Think about a guy that runs, 6 to 8 miles an hour in a jog going down this right now. You got to make sure your footing, you know where you're going to put each foot. You don't want it to land on a rock that's the size of a baseball, because you're going to go on your butt. We are 2 hours in on this video right now. Hurrah for the people that made it this far. We're probably, if I had to guess by what I can see on the video, I'd say almost a half a mile from the L sign yet. And then from the L sign, we got a good mile, or almost a mile, to the van. Yeah, it's funny the things you see along the trail side. Just a old galvanized bucket. Got dragged out there years ago, and that's where it sits. It's probably, I don't even want to say probably what it was used for, because I can't even guess. Because it's on a state park, so it's not like it was used for somebody to sit on to hunt. That would have been my first guess. Such a great view. Even with the overcast. It might even actually make the view being overcast. Just even light all the way around. The only reason why I use an app like Shotcut, you see that Shotcut name down there in the bottom right. The only reason why I don't post my own videos raw is because I can't edit, fine-tune like you can with an app. There's apps out there that allow you to fine-tune down to the split second, where the video app on my phone does not allow that. It'll jump around minutes at a time, and it just annoys you because you can't be pinpoint specific with your editing. So that's why you see, Shotcut on some, and I use different apps for different things. And it's mostly because I'm not going to spend a lot of money on an editing app to get all the professional services in one app. So I use a few different apps that have, some of the things that I have to use for different things. Some I can modify audio better. Some I can add multiple audio tracks, like this one, Shotcut. What I'm talking about right here is how people have avoided that washout, and the trail itself has changed because of nature. People don't want to step down in that hole. Another gradual down decline here. The whole right side was washed out. You can see it packed full of leaves. For all those trees, there's not a lot of, like branches, stick branches in your way. Branches that are finger size that you gotta kick out of your way because they'll get tangled up in your feet. There's not a lot of that on there. Like that one, but it just walked over right there, but there's not a lot of that. It impresses me how clean they keep them. Here, I'm really talking about how heavily this is washed out. I have to put my little bow hunting saw, I call it my bow hunting saw. It's a little saw that pulls out kind of like a switchblade knife that you can lock in position. Trees about that size, I will actually cut myself and move out of the way. But something this size, I would not do. That's just too big. That takes a chainsaw. But anything, baseball size, baseball bat size, the thicker end, I'd cut that with a handsaw and move it out of the way just to get it off the trail. Makes it easier for me the next time as well. Just a nice little cleaned out area. Be a great little campsite right up there in that small little knoll right there. Wake up, throw a line out there, catch morning breakfast. You'd probably hear geese out there waddling and talking back and forth. Ducks, you hear them all night. That would be your security alarm if they all of a sudden made a racket and started flying off. That's a nice shot. If you had a fly rod, there's plenty of open area behind you. The panfish that you would nail off that little pond right there, oh man. Whew. Anyway, yeah. I knew what I was thinking right then. Get up on the high side, stay out of the mud. This right here that we're walking alongside is the very, very bottom of Beers Lake. The other side of the lake over there where it bends, and that draw over there on the far side. Once we get around over there, the trail will actually turn and head up along that other side of the lake, which would be the west side of the lake. And that's just about the time that the mist turns to bigger drops of rain and comes whipping across that lake when we get around the other side of it. I remember that. You can see the leaves and sticks are moving a little bit here. It's basically just a opened up peninsula of Beers Lake. It actually has a pinch point. If we were looking at that view you just saw looking north, it pinch points down, before it opens back up into Beers Lake again. So we're actually walking around the widest part of it. You go further north and it funnels down to a pinch point. Have the duck under that one. I even saw it move. Yeah, you can see where the two ridge lines, left and right, come together way out there. That's where the lake narrows, and you go through those two ridges, and then it opens back up into the lake. There's actually two of these little draws. There's another one to the right that has a walk-in campsite on it. Just kind of a bummer we're not seeing any wildlife. Been on a lot of trails already this spring and seen very little. I have seen one or a couple of deer actually, but that's just a little trail that goes down to the lake itself. But I'm convincing myself right now that it's the washout that people turned into a trail. So you can see how the water just made its own trail, and then people just started using it and walking down to it. Out. Gets a little rough right here with washout. This is kind of a slow, gradual incline. Just enough to keep that water running right down the middle of it, though. Takes a lot of heavy rain to do a washout like that. That's pretty steep long and gradual, right down there, right to the lake. You get a heavy rain, non-stop for a couple hours, I bet you can just stand there and watch it run right down there. A little bit of mud, leveling off a little bit there. Just about every ridgetop I get up on top of is, cleaned up, thinned out. There's not much underbrush. Really easy to see through. Makes for a nice hike. Even in the summertime, full of leaves, you can still see through them enough to, see things at a distance, and the breeze gets through and just more comfortable. Makes for a good hike. Now we're getting a little washout going down the other side. Well, I'm explaining that when you see a little sign like that that's jagged, that's telling you that you're about to walk on a rough trail. And that sign is telling you what is allowed to use that trail for hiking, skiing, and horses. We made it to the L sign. Yeah, that's where we are, buddy. No, that's where we were. Now we made it to there. Now we gotta go along the west side of Beers Lake, up right there to the boat launch, and we'll be to the van. And that's what we're gonna do. You take that left and you go back the way we came. There's that little blue sign that we were looking for all this time. Right there. Hike Club. That's the trail that we were supposed to be on. But we ended up taking an extra 3-mile loop all the way around back to that point. So, here we go for just about another mile. It's so close to a mile, you might as well call it a mile. But being this is a hiking club trail, it's going to be pretty much like this the rest of the way now. This trail is maintained by a hiking club. And it's a well-used trail because of it. Now granted, it's, early spring. It's May. So trail cleanups aren't completely done yet, but just remember, blue may not always be the blue that you're hiking. Any color for that matter. Even the red and orange sometimes on trail markers are so similar that you think you're on one trail and you're not. So just pay attention to your map. Always stop at the information centers and get a map for the park. A lot of people don't do that, and they just wander off on trails. And I'm not saying you're going to get lost, because all trails lead somewhere. And if you know how to read the letter signs, I call them letter signs because each one that has a map on a post is a letter sign. But if you know how to read the letter signs and the map signs, you'll find your way back. But it's good to have the map with you, because you can also read the map by, the terrain. This particular park is hard because it has a lot of extra water puddles. There's a lot of beaver ponds that aren't on the map, so this one's a little more difficult. But for the most part, it's not like that. You can see a bigger lake on a map and know what lake that is in relation to the trail you're on. Even common Boy Scout knowledge is good for hiking nowadays. Get on the internet and learn something before you get out there. I overkill all the time when my backpack has stuff on it or in it that I don't need, hardly ever, but it's there in case I do. Like my first aid kit, it has more stuff in it than I'll ever need, but it's there. I bought it as a kit. I didn't buy a bunch of stuff and make my own, which sometimes is you're better off to buy stuff and make your own, because you are hiking in heavily rattlesnake area, so you're going to have protection for that, where I don't have that because we don't have rattlesnakes. Just depends on what you're doing. Or just heavy equipment in itself, you're an overdoer, sometimes you'll leave your rain gear in your pack on days when you know you're not going to need it, and you don't take it out because if you take it out you're going to forget to put it back in, so you leave it in there. That's extra weight that you're carrying around that you don't need. I even have a mini flashlight. Now, I know darn well that most of my hikes are during the day, just like what you're seeing right now. Why would I need a flashlight? Well, what if I trip and I'm on a trail that hardly anybody uses, and it's 6:30 in the evening, and I trip and knock myself out and I don't wake up till dark? The first thing I got to do is figure out where I'm at. And a flashlight gives you a sense of security. You can see. Being able to see in the dark, it makes all the difference in the world in how calm you are. So, think out of the box a little bit. You can easily trip up on a route across the trail and lose your footing and hit your head on a rock, like I said, and put yourself out for a little while, and you wake up, it's dark. Be prepared. I bet you could Google that and it may have never happened, or it might have happened a lot. Who knows? But it's just something, I have a flashlight in my pack because something may happen and I may need it, period. I may drop something down into a hole in between two rocks and I can't quite see it, but I know it's right there, and just that extra light means I can put my hand in there and knowing I'm not going to get bit by something and reach in and grab whatever it is. You know, you never know. At one point, I used to even carry, 50 feet of monofilament fishing line and, you know, a number size 6 hook, maybe a couple little small split shot sinkers, and that's it, and just keep it in a little Tupperware type thing, that you put the condiments in, a really small Tupperware, and put it in my pack. If you're hiking along, just like what we've been hiking along today, all these little ponds, you tie it to a stick, you put a little worm on it, and you throw it out there and you hang onto the stick so your line doesn't get away from you. And just tug it every now and then, and boom, you might get a little fish. Find a little piece of dried bark that you can make a bobber out of so you don't go right to the bottom. You catch sunnies all day long doing that, just having 50 feet of fishing line. You don't have to cast halfway across the lake to catch a fish, and you don't need, $20 lures and $100 fishing poles and reels. The fish don't know what you fish with. They want the bait on the end of the hook. You match the hatch. You're walking along a stream and the mayflies are flying around. Find one, put it on a hook, throw it out there in the lake, and you'll catch trout. Or bass, or crappie. Just talking about it makes me want to put that back in my pack just for that reason. It'd be neat to do that and do a catch and cook video. Just off a string and a hook. No fishing pole. Those are horse tracks that I'm looking at. So I'm talking about how it's also a horse trail as well as a hiking trail. You gotta have a pretty good trained horse to get up on that high packed ground like I'm walking on right now. And just off to the left, there's more shot of the water, I guess, but just off to the left of that hard pack is just exposed rocks that horses don't really like to walk on, no matter how good they're hooved or shoed. You can see a bunch of the big rocks right there exposed. Water, it's amazing what it'll do. I'll tell you, by the time I got around to this point after carrying that water bladder pack, I had 2.5 pints of water that I was carrying. Just in the bladder alone, plus the stuff that I was carrying, extra stuff, which really wasn't all that much more, but some snacks. And I keep my tinted ski goggles in my backpack, so on really windy days, your eyes won't dry out. You'd be surprised how much more comfortable it is to wear ski goggles when you're hiking on windy days. You can keep your eyes wide open, especially if it's blowing up dust and dirt and leaves and anything else. You don't have to squint your eyes or anything. You can just keep them wide open and just hike. It's so much more comfortable. So I always keep ski goggles in my pack and extra sunglasses. You don't know how many times I've taken them off, setting them down, not only set them down and sat on them and broke them, but sat them down and walked off and left them. I don't buy really expensive sunglasses, but I do buy Polaroids. Oh, hold on. I'm at the beaver section. Yeah, I believe I am. Wait till you see how many trees these beavers attacked. And it's way up a ridge and way up on the other side. I mean, look at these trees are pretty big. And it's across the trail. Look in the woods deeper. See them back there? Now that's quite a ways in the woods, first of all. But second of all, it's way down, way down off to the right before they get to the pond. Or the lake. We're walking around Beers Lake now. Yeah, that was quite a feat for a beaver. You can tell right there the difference in a hiking club trail. It's just so much cleaner, so much wider. Most times easier to walk on. And most time the most scenic. Two hours and 30 minutes, people. If you've made it this far, there's about 15, 14 more minutes to go to the end of this. And I highly thank you for sticking around to see this awesome trail. And it really is an awesome trail. It's a great hike. When we get down around this corner and get down next to the lake, that wind really starts to come around. That picks up my pace a little bit. But at that point, we're really close to the home stretch. It'll probably be, let's see. Really be almost a half a mile once we turn this corner to get back to the van. That's quite a view with that point sticking out into the lake across the other side there. If you remember back when I said that the lake goes up into a funnel, this is that funnel. We just walked around the whole bottom to the right there where it was really wide. And now we're coming up to where the pinch point is in the lake. And that wind is coming right at me, right here, or right at us. Coming between that tree and the trail. Once I get up in here a little ways, I turn around, you can see it smacking up against the shoreline. But it wasn't up. There's the first drop of rain that hit the camera. And I'm sorry to say that's going to be on there for the whole ride because I had no clue. With a chest mount, I don't see what's in front of me. I'm glad that didn't happen earlier. But this is what they call a primitive boat launch, where you can put canoes if you want to hike it down in here. Or you can canoe to that area and get out and hang out and camp and whatever. Do a little day camp. So yeah, I'm sorry to say that the raindrops on the lens, they're home to stay unless the wind dries them off. All we can hope for is there's not many more. Even I got a little wet on that blast, so you can tell I'm moving a little quicker. And it's kind of thin right there, yet the wind's still whipping through across that lake. So I'm trying to move it a little bit quicker just to get myself through it too. We still got to get around the whole north side of that lake yet. Well, not the whole side, but close. We don't quite go all the way around. We might get more rain on us here because we'll go along the side here for quite a bit. I am going to have to walk this trail the opposite direction. It was just as challenging either way with the ridges and the peaks. So it's not like it's going to be easier one way than the other. There may be more of them one way. Look at that rock collection. Those big ones exposed there. I bet there's a bunch under those leaves. I have no choice but to walk in them there. Well, I had choice. I could have got up on the high side, but as you can tell, I'm just moving now. I'm just trying to get around to where the boat launch is. Great view. This is why I want to do it the other direction. I'd like to see this view from the other way. It's not much further now. A couple more short little bends in the trail here. That campsite is actually right up to the left here. And I think I actually pan up there and show, right there you can see the camper kind of up on the ledge, up on the ridge. So we're not real far from where the end of the trail is. At first I thought it was a deer stand, and I was going to say that when I was hiking, and I was like, don't say that. You're in a state park. That's not a deer stand. Because deer stands here are big box stands that people put right on the edge of fields. So at first I thought that's what it was. I thought I turned up and looked at it, but evidently not. So content on getting back to the van. By now, with all that extra weight of the water bag and being hungry, yeah, I was ready to end it. So, and this is the end. Yeah, the campsite's right up there. That's the view I want. That's why I want to go the other way. So that water drop didn't really affect a whole lot because it only affected the last 10 minutes of the video or so. So we're pretty close to the end here. Another 5 minutes or so. Again, I'll say, just a great day for hiking. A great trail to be on. Smooth, quiet, because of the weather conditions, it was quiet. The leaves weren't crunchy. It was just a great day to be out hiking. There were quite a few people out on the lake with boats, being, Mother's Day is free fishing for moms on Mother's Day. And then, a lot of guys like that. Let's go fishing, honey. But like I said, the campgrounds were pretty much full. And it may even have been a reserve thing. They may have called ahead and reserved, because some of them look like they were set up and ready to go for, a day or two. You can tell because the lawn chairs are out, the canopies are pulled out from the campers, and the grilling stuff is set up. Some of that stuff, they take their time and gradually do. They don't just pull up, start yanking stuff out and set up right away. What I call tableclothing the picnic table. That's not the first thing you do. But we did that when we were kids. All the aunts and uncles and got together, and the cousins, and we would go to state parks, and oh yeah, all those women, they would break out their tablecloths, cover them picnic tables. That was a thing in the 70s. It really did help with the ants, though. Not so much the flies. The flies were going to come around no matter what, but a little more mud here. You can always tell when the water's still flowing down from the top of the peaks. You get these tire tracks from the four-wheelers and ATVs that the groundskeepers use. The water just gets in them and can't go anywhere. Well, it's definitely a loop that I would recommend if you were going to come to Maplewood State Park. You could park down at the boat launch area, or even there's a little parking area where the fishing pier is. You could park there. That's really close to the head here, where the fishing pier is. You can get to the head of the trail from that, and there's a little bit of room to park. When I fish, I park right next to the fishing pier, and I'm there fishing for hours. So, and you can do this loop. I mean, it's 5 miles, so you could do it in less than 5 hours if you really wanted to. I did it in less than 3. I'm 60 years old, but I don't sit around much lately. I do get some exercise. This isn't my first rodeo for hiking. I got a few trails under my belt already this year, but You can't do them by watching me do it. You got to get out there and do it too. One step at a time. Step over the logs. Don't brush up against trees and fallen trees. You'll get ticks on you. And always take a look around. You might have missed something. And this is where we started. And this is where we end.